The warm summer breeze carried the distant sounds of laughter and music, signaling the long-awaited return of Millfield's annual carnival. For a town that thrived on tradition, the carnival was more than just an event. It was a symbol of community, joy, and nostalgia. After a decade of absence, the excitement was palpable. Brightly colored lights twinkled against the night sky, casting a festive glow over the fairgrounds. Families, teenagers, and children poured through the gates, eager to indulge in sugary treats, thrilling rides, and games of chance. The smell of popcorn and cotton candy mingled with the scent of grass and earth, creating a heady mix that evoked memories of carefree summer nights. At the heart of the carnival stood a game booth that had once been the center of attention, though not for reasons anyone liked to discuss openly. The booth, adorned with faded red and white stripes, seemed out of place among the newer, shinier attractions. Its sign, "The Game of Fate," hung precariously, swaying in the breeze. Emma, a high school senior with a penchant for adventure, wandered the fairgrounds with her friends. They laughed and chatted, excitement buzzing in the air. Emma's gaze fell upon the old booth and she felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard the stories, as had everyone in town. 10 years ago, a young girl named Lucy had died tragically while playing the game. The carnival had been shut down immediately, and the booth had been left untouched, a silent monument to the past. "Hey, look at that!" Emma's friend Jake pointed at the booth. "That's the one they say is cursed, right?" "Oh, come on, Jake, it's just a silly story." Emily, another friend, scoffed. "A way to keep kids from causing trouble." Emma couldn't shake the feeling of unease. "I don't know, there's something about it." "Are you scared?" Jake teased, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Why don't we check it out? I bet it's all just superstition." Emma hesitated, but her curiosity got the better of her. "All right, let's do it, but just for a minute." The group approached the booth, its shadows stretching out like dark fingers in the glow of the carnival lights. The closer they got, the more oppressive the air seemed to become. Emma's heart raced as they reached the entrance. The interior was dimly lit with dust-covered shelves and an old wooden counter. A worn-out game wheel and a faded deck of cards lay abandoned. "See? Nothing to be scared of," Jake said, though his voice lacked its usual bravado. Emily picked up a card, blowing off the dust. "It's just an old game. I bet we could figure out how to play it." Emma glanced around, her unease growing. "Maybe we should just go. This place gives me the creeps." "Come on, Em. Where's your sense of adventure?" Jake urged, spinning the game wheel. It creaked ominously, the sound echoing in the stillness. Suddenly, the carnival lights flickered, and a cold wind swept through the booth. Emma shivered, feeling an invisible presence watching them. The wheel stopped spinning, landing on a symbol they didn't recognize. A skull surrounded by flames. The booth seemed to come alive, the air thick with an unnatural energy. Emma's eyes widened in fear as she saw a ghostly figure materialize behind the counter. A young girl, her face pale and eyes hollow. It was Lucy, her presence unmistakable. "Get out," the ghost whispered, her voice a haunting echo. "Before it's too late." The friends froze, terror gripping their hearts. The carnival outside continued in blissful ignorance, the laughter and music a stark contrast to the horror unfolding within the cursed booth. Emma grabbed Jake's arm, her voice shaking. "We need to leave. Now." As they stumbled out of the booth, the ghost's eyes followed them, a silent warning of the horrors yet to come. The cursed game had awakened, and it was hungry for more souls. The carnival had returned, but so had the darkness that haunted it, and the night was far from over. 10 years ago, the carnival was in full swing, a bustling hub of joy and excitement. The Game of Fate booth was one of the most popular attractions, drawing crowds with its promises of prizes and thrills. Among the eager participants was Lucy Hartman, a bright-eyed 12-year-old with an infectious smile. Lucy had come to the carnival with her parents, her younger brother Timmy, and her best friend Sarah. The girls had been saving their allowance for weeks, eager to spend it on the carnival games. The Game of Fate booth, with its colorful lights and cheerful music, had caught their attention immediately. "Come on, Lucy, let's try it," Sarah exclaimed, tugging at her friend's sleeve. Lucy hesitated, glancing back at her parents. They were busy buying tickets for the Ferris wheel, their laughter mingling with the festive sounds of the carnival. She felt a pang of guilt, but quickly pushed it aside. It was just a game after all. "All right, just one round," Lucy agreed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. They approached the booth, manned by a jovial man with a thick mustache and twinkling eyes. "Step right up, ladies. Test your fate and win a prize," he bellowed. Lucy handed over her coins and the man smiled warmly. "Good luck, little lady," he said, his eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. The game wheel was divided into brightly colored sections, each marked with different symbols. Lucy spun it with all her might, the wheel clattering noisily as it spun. Sarah watched, wide-eyed, as it slowed and finally stopped on a section marked by a skull surrounded by flames. The man's smile faltered for a split second before returning, though his eyes lost their sparkle. "Ah, a special round. Draw a card, young lady," he instructed, holding out a deck of worn cards. Lucy hesitated, feeling a shiver run down her spine, but Sarah nudged her encouragingly. "Go on, Lucy. It's just a game." Taking a deep breath, Lucy drew a card. It was a joker, grinning malevolently. The moment she revealed it, the atmosphere around the booth shifted. The cheerful music seemed to distort, becoming a sinister melody that set Lucy's teeth on edge. The man's smile vanished entirely. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the carnival's din. Before Lucy could ask what he meant, a powerful gust of wind swept through the booth, knocking her off her feet. The lights flickered and died, plunging the area into darkness. Lucy's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to her feet, disoriented and terrified. "Sarah?" she called out, but there was no response. Panic surged through her as she stumbled out of the booth. The sounds of the carnival suddenly muted. Her parents were nowhere to be seen, and the once crowded fairground now felt eerily deserted. "Help! Somebody! Help!" Lucy cried, her voice trembling. A cold hand clamped down on her shoulder, and she spun around to face the man from the booth. His eyes were wide with fear. "You need to leave. Now!" he urged, his voice frantic. Lucy broke free from his grasp and ran, her mind racing with confusion and terror. She didn't stop until she reached the Ferris wheel, where she found her parents and Timmy, looking around anxiously. "Lucy, where have you been?" her mother exclaimed, pulling her into a tight embrace. I was at the game booth," Lucy stammered, tears streaming down her face. "Something happened. It was horrible." Her father frowned. "What are you talking about? We've been looking for you for the past hour. We thought you were with Sarah." Lucy's blood ran cold. "Sarah? She was with me," she whispered, turning to look back at the booth. It stood in the distance, dark and foreboding, its cheerful facade shattered. The next morning, the carnival was closed, and news spread quickly through Millfield. Sarah's body was found near the booth, her face frozen in a mask of terror. The cause of death was never determined, and the game of fate was boarded up, its dark secrets hidden away. Lucy's life was forever changed. The tragedy haunted her, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked behind the carnival's cheerful veneer. The townspeople spoke of the curse in hushed tones, and the booth was left to decay, a silent testament to the past. Now, 10 years later, the carnival had returned, and with it, the game of fate. The memories resurfaced, filling the air with an uneasy tension. The stage was set for history to repeat itself, and the darkness was ready to claim new victims. The carnival was in full swing, and the air buzzed with laughter, the aroma of fried foods, and the rhythmic jingles of carnival games. Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom strolled through the fairgrounds, weaving through the throngs of people. The neon lights painted their faces with a surreal glow, and for a moment, the group forgot about the cursed booth and the eerie encounter they had experienced the night before. "Hey, look at that ride. It looks intense," Tom exclaimed, pointing at the towering roller coaster that twisted and turned in the distance. "Let's go on it later," Emma suggested, her voice tinged with excitement. "But first, I think we should check out that booth again." Jake grinned. "Still curious, huh? Maybe we can figure out what happened last night." Emily rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her curiosity. "Fine, but let's make it quick. That place gives me the creeps." As they approached the game of fate, the cheerful noise of the carnival seemed to fade, replaced by an eerie stillness. The booth loomed before them, its faded red and white stripes looking even more sinister under the flickering lights. "All right, who's up for a dare?" Jake challenged, his eyes glinting with mischief. Emma hesitated, memories of the ghostly girl flashing through her mind. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" "Come on, Emma, it's just a game," Jake insisted, pulling out a coin and flipping it in the air. "I'll go first." Jake stepped up to the counter and spun the wheel. The others watched in tense silence as it clattered noisily, finally stopping on a section marked by a black star. "Draw a card," Jake muttered, mimicking the words of the man from the past. He pulled a card from the deck, revealing the ace of spades. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a low, mournful wail echoed through the booth. Emma felt a chill run down her spine as she saw the ghostly figure of Lucy materialize behind Jake, her hollow eyes fixed on them, filled with sorrow and rage. "Jake, get out of there!" Emma screamed, but it was too late. The booth seemed to come alive, the ground shaking as a vortex of wind swirled around them. Jake was thrown backward, landing hard on the ground. The ghost of Lucy hovered above him, her voice a haunting whisper. "Why did you come back?" Emily and Tom rushed to Jake's side, helping him to his feet. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave, now," he gasped. They stumbled out of the booth, the carnival lights flickering erratically. Emma glanced back and saw Lucy watching them, her spectral form fading into the shadows. "Did you see that?" Tom panted, his voice trembling. "That was real. That was a ghost." Emily shivered. "We shouldn't have come here. This place is cursed." Jake, shaken but determined, looked back at the booth. "There's something we're missing. We need to find out what really happened to Lucy." Emma nodded, her fear replaced by a steely resolve. "We need to know the truth, but we can't do it alone. We need help." As they made their way through the carnival, the festive atmosphere seemed to mock their fear. The ride spun and the games continued, oblivious to the dark force that lurked within the game of fate. Emma knew that the only way to break the curse was to uncover the secrets of that tragic night 10 years ago. They sought out Mrs. Hartman, Lucy's mother, who had become a recluse after her daughter's death. She lived in a small, dilapidated house on the outskirts of town, shrouded in grief and silence. Mrs. Hartman opened the door, her eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice brittle. "We need to know what happened to Lucy," Emma said softly. "We think the curse is back. We need your help to stop it." Mrs. Hartman sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of her sorrow. "Come in," she whispered. "It's time you knew the truth." As they stepped inside, the smell of old books and lavender filled the air. Mrs. Hartman led them to the living room where photographs of Lucy adorned the walls. She handed Emma a faded journal. "This belonged to Lucy. Maybe it will help you understand." Emma opened the journal, her heart pounding. The pages were filled with Lucy's neat handwriting, recounting her excitement about the carnival, the fateful game, and the strange occurrences that followed. As they read, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The carnival's owner had dabbled in dark magic, binding Lucy's spirit to the booth in a desperate attempt to cheat death. Her soul was trapped, doomed to haunt the game of fate until the curse was broken. "We need to set her free," Emma said, her voice firm. "We need to finish what she started." The friends left Mrs. Hartman's house with renewed determination. They had a mission to uncover the secrets of the cursed carnival game and release Lucy's tormented spirit. The night was far from over, and the true horror was only beginning to unfold. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town of Millfield. The air grew colder, and a thick fog rolled in from the nearby woods, shrouding the carnival in an eerie mist. Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom made their way back to the fairgrounds, Lucy's journal clutched tightly in Emma's hands. "Do you really think this will work?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anticipation. "We have to try," Emma replied. "Lucy's journal mentioned something about the game wheel and the cards being key to breaking the curse. We need to understand how it all fits together." As they approached the Game of Fate booth, the atmosphere grew tense. The once bustling carnival seemed to fade into the background, the cheerful sounds now muffled and distant. The booth stood ominously, a dark silhouette against the foggy night. "We should stick together," Jake suggested, his earlier bravado replaced by a palpable sense of caution. "No more splitting up." Emma nodded, leading the group inside the booth. The air was thick with dust and decay, the faint scent of lavender lingering, a reminder of their visit to Mrs. Hartman's house. The game wheel and deck of cards lay exactly where they had left them, untouched and foreboding. Emma opened Lucy's journal to the last few entries, her eyes scanning the pages. She wrote about a sequence, the order in which the cards need to be drawn. It's supposed to counteract the dark magic used to bind her spirit. Tom frowned, peering over her shoulder. "How do we know it's the right sequence? What if we get it wrong?" "We don't have a choice," Emma said firmly. "We have to trust that Lucy left us the right clues." They gathered around the game wheel, Emma's fingers trembling as she reached for the deck of cards. She took a deep breath and began to shuffle them, the cards making a soft shuffling sound that seemed to echo in the stillness. "All right, according to the journal, we need to draw 3 cards in this order: the Ace of Hearts, the Queen of Spades, and the Joker," Emma explained. "The wheel needs to land on the black star to activate the sequence." Jake stepped up to the wheel, his face set in determination. "Let's do this." He spun the wheel with all his might, the clattering sound filling the booth. They watched in tense silence as it slowed, inching towards the black star. Emma held her breath, praying silently for it to land on the right spot. Just as it seemed it might stop on a different symbol, a sudden gust of wind swept through the booth, pushing the wheel to the black star. The air grew colder, and the fog outside thickened, swirling around them. Emma drew the first card, the Ace of Hearts. A soft glow emanated from it, and she placed it on the counter. The ghostly figure of Lucy appeared, her expression one of pain and hope. "You're doing it right," Lucy whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please don't stop." Next, Emma drew the Queen of Spades. The card felt cold to the touch, and as she placed it next to the Ace of Hearts, a sharp chill filled the booth. Lucy's figure flickered, her form becoming more solid. "The final card," Emma said, her hand shaking as she reached for the deck. She drew the Joker, its grinning face seeming to mock them. She placed it beside the other cards, completing the sequence. The booth shook violently, the lights flickering. The cards glowed brightly, and Lucy's figure solidified, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice stronger now. "You've almost freed me." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the booth, and a blinding light filled the space. Emma shielded her eyes, feeling the ground tremble beneath her feet. When the light faded, Lucy was gone, but the oppressive weight in the air remained. "Did it work?" Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could answer, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, coming from outside the booth. The friends rushed out, their hearts pounding. The carnival lights flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows across the fairgrounds. They saw a figure stumbling towards them, clutching their chest. It was Mr. Peterson, the town's sheriff, his face pale with terror. "The girl! She's back!" he gasped. "And she's not alone." Behind him, the fog parted, revealing ghostly figures emerging from the darkness. They were the lost souls of those who had fallen victim to the cursed game over the years, their eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. "We have to finish this," Emma said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "We have to find the source of the curse and destroy it." With the carnival now a haunted playground for restless spirits, the friends knew they were in for the fight of their lives. The first omen had appeared, and the true battle was just beginning. The ghostly figures loomed closer, their mournful wails blending with the carnival's distorted music. Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom stood their ground, hearts pounding as they faced the spectral crowd. The fog thickened, swirling around them like a living entity, making it hard to see beyond a few feet. "We need to get out of here," Emily urged, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. "We can't fight them." Emma shook her head. "We can't just run. We have to end this." Lucy's journal mentioned that the source of the curse is hidden somewhere in the carnival. Jake nodded, determination hardening his features. "Let's split up and search. We'll cover more ground that way." Tom hesitated. "Are you sure that's a good idea? We're stronger together." "We don't have a choice," Emma replied. "Time is running out." Reluctantly, they divided into pairs, Emma and Jake heading towards the funhouse, while Emily and Tom made their way to the Ferris wheel. The ghostly figures watched them, their eyes filled with a sorrowful rage, but they did not follow. Emma and Jake moved quickly, dodging carnival workers and patrons who were blissfully unaware of the supernatural horrors unfolding around them. The funhouse loomed ahead, its garish exterior seeming even more sinister in the flickering light. "This place always creeped me out," Jake muttered as they entered, the air inside heavy with dust and the scent of decay. The mirrors lining the walls distorted their reflections, creating eerie, twisted versions of themselves. Emma shivered, her grip tightening on Lucy's journal. We need to find something that looks out of place, anything that could be the source of the curse. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing ominously. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the funhouse, freezing them in their tracks. "Emily and Tom!" Emma gasped, turning to run back the way they came. Meanwhile, at the Ferris wheel, Emily and Tom searched frantically. The ride creaked ominously, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out towards them. "Do you see anything?" Emily called out, her voice tinged with panic. Tom shook his head. "Nothing, but we need to hurry." His words were cut short as a ghostly figure lunged at them from the shadows. It was Lucy, her face twisted in pain. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice a haunting whisper. Emily reached out, her hand passing through the spectral form. "How can we help you?" "Find the heart of the curse," Lucy whispered. "Destroy it, and free us all." Before they could ask more, the ghost vanished, leaving them alone in the darkness. They turned back to the Ferris wheel, and Tom's eyes widened as he spotted something glinting in the shadows beneath the ride. "Emily, look!" he exclaimed, pointing to a small, ornate box hidden among the machinery. They approached cautiously, and Emily reached out to open the box. Inside was a small, black heart-shaped amulet, pulsing with a sinister energy. "This has to be it," Emily said, her voice trembling. "We need to destroy it." Back at the funhouse, Emma and Jake were almost at the exit when they heard the scream again. Bursting outside, they saw Emily and Tom struggling with the amulet, surrounded by ghostly figures trying to stop them. "We found it!" Emily shouted. "Help us!" Emma and Jake rushed over, fending off the spirits as best they could. The air grew colder, and the fog thickened, making it hard to see. With a final desperate effort, Emily raised the amulet and smashed it against the ground. A blinding light erupted from the shattered pieces, and the ghostly figures let out a collective wail. The fog dissipated, and the air grew still. The carnival's lights flickered back to normal, and the ghostly figures faded away, their faces finally at peace. Lucy's spirit appeared one last time, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her form dissolving into the night. The friends stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they had just experienced sinking in. The cursed game was destroyed, and the spirits were free, but the horrors they had faced would leave a lasting mark. "We did it," Jake said quietly, his voice filled with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Emma nodded, clutching Lucy's journal to her chest. "We did, but we'll never forget this night." As the carnival continued around them, oblivious to the supernatural battle that had taken place, the friends knew that their lives would never be the same. The game had turned deadly, but they had survived, and with that, they had broken the curse that had haunted Millfield for so long. The carnival lights twinkled innocuously, casting an eerie glow on the aftermath of their ordeal. Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom stood in the fairgrounds, still reeling from the intense encounter. The shattered pieces of the black heart-shaped amulet lay on the ground, dark and lifeless. "We need to figure out how this curse started," Emma said, her voice steady but laced with exhaustion. Lucy's journal might have more answers. They gathered at a nearby picnic table, the journal open in front of them. The entries were detailed, recounting Lucy's excitement about the carnival, her fascination with the game of fate, and the strange occurrences that followed. Emily traced her finger over the pages. She mentions the carnival's owner several times. She was curious about him, especially after she started seeing strange things around the booth. Jake frowned. "I remember hearing stories about him. They say he was obsessed with immortality and dabbled in dark magic. But those were just rumors, right?" Emma shook her head. Not according to this journal. Lucy wrote about finding old books and strange artifacts in his trailer. She thought he was performing rituals. Tom leaned in, his expression serious. We need to find out more about this owner. If he was responsible for the curse, there might be more evidence hidden somewhere. The group decided to search the carnival grounds for the owner's trailer, hoping to uncover more clues. They moved cautiously through the fair, the festive atmosphere feeling like a thin veneer over the dark history they were unraveling. After some searching, they found the trailer parked at the edge of the fairgrounds, partially hidden by overgrown bushes. It was old and worn, with peeling paint and broken windows. The air around it felt heavy, as if the trailer itself harbored a lingering darkness. Emma pushed the door open, and they stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under their weight. The interior was cluttered with dusty books, strange artifacts, and yellowed papers. A faint smell of incense hung in the air. Jake picked up an old leather-bound book. "This looks like some kind of spell book," he said, flipping through the pages. "It's written in a language I don't recognize." Emily found a stack of letters tied with a frayed ribbon. She untied it carefully, reading the faded handwriting. "These letters are addressed to the carnival owner. They're from someone named Victor, warning him about the dangers of the rituals he was performing." Tom examined a dusty, ornate box on a shelf. Inside, he found a collection of photographs, each depicting the carnival in various stages over the years. One photo showed a much younger version of the owner, standing next to a woman and a little girl. "Look at this," Tom said, showing the photo to the others. "That's him, the owner. And I think that's his family. This must have been taken years ago." Emma took the photo, studying it closely. Lucy mentioned a woman in her journal. She wrote about seeing her around the booth, always looking sad. She thought the woman was somehow connected to the curse. Jake's eyes widened. What if the woman and the little girl in this photo are his wife and daughter? Maybe something happened to them, and he tried to bring them back using dark magic. Emily shivered. That would explain a lot, but it's also terrifying. As they continued to search the trailer, they found more evidence of the owner's obsession with immortality and his descent into madness. He had kept detailed notes on his rituals, his growing frustration, and his desperate attempts to contact the dead. Emma found a final entry in the journal that made her blood run cold. It was written in a shaky hand, filled with despair. "I've done something terrible. I thought I could save them, but I've only damned us all. The curse is my punishment, and it will never end." "This curse wasn't just an accident," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He did this to himself and everyone around him, and Lucy got caught in the middle of it." Jake nodded grimly. "We have to make sure this doesn't happen again. We need to destroy all this, every book, every artifact." The friends gathered the books, letters, and artifacts, taking them outside. They built a small bonfire, the flames crackling as they tossed the items in. The air seemed to grow lighter as the dark remnants of the curse burned away, the oppressive weight lifting from the fairgrounds. As the fire died down, they stood in silence, the gravity of their actions sinking in. They had uncovered the dark secrets behind the curse and destroyed its source, but the scars of that night would remain with them. "We did it," Tom said quietly. "We stopped the curse." Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. "But we need to remember what happened here. We need to make sure no one else suffers because of it." The friends made a pact to watch over the carnival, to ensure that its dark past never resurfaced. They had faced the horrors of the game of fate and emerged stronger, bound by the shared experience of their battle against the supernatural. As they walked away from the smoldering remnants of the curse, they knew that the carnival would never be the same. The secrets they had unveiled would stay with them, a reminder of the thin line between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between light and darkness. And though the carnival lights continued to twinkle, casting their cheerful glow, the friends knew that true peace had finally returned to Millfield, and the restless spirits had found their long-awaited rest. As the days turned into weeks, the carnival continued its tour, leaving Millfield and its dark history behind. For Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom, life slowly returned to normal, but the memories of that fateful night lingered like shadows at the edge of their minds. Emma found herself often staring at Lucy's journal, now safely tucked away in a drawer. The events they had uncovered and the spirits they had freed left her with a profound sense of responsibility. Every night she replayed the scenes in her mind, wondering if they had truly put an end to the curse. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a deep orange, Emma gathered her friends at her house. They sat around the living room, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken thoughts. "I've been having nightmares," Emma confessed, breaking the silence. "I keep seeing Lucy and the other spirits, calling out for help." Emily nodded, her eyes dark with fatigue. "Me too. It's like they're trying to tell us something. Like there's still something we're missing." Jake frowned, his expression troubled. "I've felt it too. Sometimes I see shadows moving in the corner of my eye, but when I turn, there's nothing there." Tom sighed. "We've done everything we could. We destroyed the curse's source. Maybe it's just our minds trying to process what happened." Emma shook her head. "No, it feels like more than that. We need to go back. We need to make sure we didn't overlook anything." Reluctantly, the group agreed to return to the fairgrounds. The carnival was gone, but the memories and remnants of the game of fate lingered. As they arrived, the once lively place now stood abandoned, the remnants of booths and rides silhouetted against the fading light. The friends made their way to the spot where the game of fate booth had stood. The ground was disturbed, as if the earth itself remembered the horrors that had taken place. Emma knelt down, feeling a strange pull towards the soil. "There's something here," she whispered, digging with her hands. The others joined her, and soon they unearthed a small weathered box, its surface etched with symbols they recognized from the owner's trailer. Emma opened the box carefully. Inside was a collection of personal items: a locket, a child's toy, and a faded photograph of the carnival owner's family. There was also a note, written in the same shaky handwriting as the journal entry they had found. "If you're reading this, it means the curse has not yet ended. My attempts to bring them back have failed, and now their spirits are bound to this place. I have hidden one last piece of the curse here, hoping that someone pure of heart will find it and set things right." Emily gasped. So there was more to the curse than we knew. Jake examined the items, his eyes lingering on the locket. "We need to find a way to release these spirits once and for all." Tom nodded. "We need to take these items back to Mrs. Hartman. She might know what to do." The journey to Mrs. Hartman's house was filled with a tense silence, each of them lost in their thoughts. When they arrived, Mrs. Hartman welcomed them in, her eyes reflecting the weight of her own haunted memories. Emma handed her the box. "We found this buried near the booth. There's a note saying the curse isn't over." Mrs. Hartman's hands trembled as she opened the box. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the photograph. This was his family. He tried so hard to bring them back, but in doing so, he trapped their spirits. She took a deep breath, composing herself. There is one final ritual that can release them. It must be performed at the exact spot where they were bound. That night, under the light of a full moon, the friends returned to the fairgrounds with Mrs. Hartman. They gathered around the disturbed earth, the box of personal items at the center. Mrs. Hartman began the ritual, chanting in a language that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. The ground trembled, and a cold wind swept through the fairgrounds. The ghostly figures of the owner's family appeared, their faces peaceful but sad. "We're here to set you free," Mrs. Hartman whispered, tears streaming down her face. She placed the locket, toy, and photograph in the ground, covering them with soil. The spirits glowed softly, their forms becoming less distinct. "Thank you," the mother's spirit said, her voice a gentle echo. "We can finally rest." With a final flash of light, the spirits vanished, the air growing still and calm. The oppressive weight that had hung over the fairgrounds lifted, replaced by a sense of peace. The friends stood in silence, the gravity of the moment sinking in. They had uncovered the final secret of the curse and set the trapped spirits free. As they left the fairgrounds, they knew that while the haunted memories would stay with them, they had brought an end to the darkness that had plagued Millfield for so long. Emma looked at her friends, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and unity. "We did it. We really did it." Jake smiled, a rare look of relief on his face. "Together." And as they walked away from the fairgrounds, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, they knew that they had not only freed the spirits, but also healed a part of themselves. The haunted memories would remain, but they no longer held the power they once did. The days passed peacefully, and the weight of the curse seemed to have lifted from the town of Millfield. Yet, Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unfinished business. Their dreams were still haunted by echoes of the carnival, and the sense of finality eluded them. One evening, as they gathered at Emma's house, they discussed their lingering unease. "It feels like we've done everything," Emily said, frustration lacing her voice. "But why do I still feel like something's not right? Maybe it's just the trauma," Jake suggested. "We went through a lot. It's bound to leave a mark." Tom shook his head. "I don't think it's just that. What if there's still a piece of the curse we haven't found?" Emma's eyes widened. "The ritual didn't cover the carnival itself. The rides, the booths, they could still be holding some residual energy." Jake sighed. "So, what do we do? Search the entire carnival for another hidden clue?" Emma nodded. "Exactly. We need to go back one last time and make sure we haven't missed anything." Reluctantly, they agreed. The friends returned to the fairgrounds, now overgrown and silent. The air was thick with an almost tangible tension, as if the ground itself remembered the horrors that had unfolded. "We need to split up again," Emma suggested. "Search every ride, every booth. Look for anything out of place." They paired off, Emma and Jake heading towards the rides, Emily and Tom taking the game booths. As they combed through the area, the night grew darker, the shadows deepening around them. Emma and Jake approached the Ferris wheel, its metal frame creaking in the wind. "Do you think it's possible there's still something here?" Jake asked, his voice low. "Maybe," Emma replied, scanning the ground. "We have to be thorough." Suddenly, a faint glow caught her eye. She knelt down, brushing away dirt to reveal a small, intricately carved box, similar to the one they had found before. "Jake, look at this." Jake helped her open the box, revealing a single black card, the Joker. It pulsed with a dark energy, and Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "This must be it," Emma whispered, "the final piece." Meanwhile, Emily and Tom were searching the game booths. Tom noticed something strange about the Game of Fate booth. Despite being closed and abandoned, the wheel inside seemed to spin on its own, slowly and ominously. "Emily, over here," Tom called, his voice filled with urgency. Emily joined him, watching the wheel with a mixture of fear and fascination. "It's still active," she said. "We need to stop it." They carefully approached the wheel, feeling the air grow colder with each step. As they reached out to touch it, a powerful force threw them backward, the air filling with a malevolent presence. At that moment, Emma and Jake arrived, holding the Black Joker card. "We found this," Emma said. "I think it's the last piece of the curse." "We need to use it to stop the wheel," Emily said, struggling to her feet. With great effort, they approached the wheel again. Emma held out the Joker card, feeling the dark energy thrumming through it. As she placed the card on the wheel, the ground shook and a deafening roar filled the air. The wheel spun violently, the symbols blurring together. The friends watched in terror as ghostly figures emerged, their faces twisted with rage and sorrow. The carnival seemed to come alive with a sinister force, the lights flickering wildly. "We need to break it," Jake shouted over the noise. "Destroy the wheel." Tom grabbed a nearby metal rod and swung it at the wheel with all his might. The wheel shattered, pieces flying in all directions. The ghostly figures let out a collective wail and then dissolved into the air, their forms dissipating like mist. The ground stopped shaking, and an eerie silence fell over the carnival. The oppressive weight that had lingered lifted, replaced by a calm, serene feeling. The friends stood in stunned silence, the reality of their victory sinking in. "Is it over?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma nodded, tears of relief streaming down her face. "It's over. We did it." As they left the fairgrounds, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, they knew that they had faced the final challenge and emerged victorious. The curse was broken, the spirits were free, and Millfield could finally find peace. They returned to their lives, forever changed by the experience. The haunted memories would remain, but they no longer held the power to terrify. They had faced their deepest fears and won, bound by the strength of their friendship and the knowledge that they had set things right. The carnival moved on, its dark past buried, but the friends knew they would always carry the lessons they had learned. The final challenge had tested their courage and resolve, but they had emerged stronger, ready to face whatever life might throw at them next. With the curse broken and the carnival's dark energy dissipated, the friends felt a profound sense of relief. They gathered at Emma's house the next morning, the bright sunlight streaming through the windows, a stark contrast to the eerie gloom they had endured the previous night. "We did it," Emma said, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We really did it." Jake nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "The curse is gone, but I still can't believe we made it through." Emily hugged herself, still shivering slightly. "I feel like I can finally breathe again. But those memories, they'll always be with us." Tom looked at his friends, a serious expression on his face. "What do we tell people? About the carnival, the curse, everything?" Emma sighed, glancing at Lucy's journal resting on the table. "We need to be careful. Not everyone will believe us, and we don't want to cause a panic. Maybe we can share parts of the story, enough to warn others without revealing everything." They spent the next few hours discussing how to approach the situation. They decided to visit Mrs. Hartman one last time, to thank her and to share their plans. When they arrived at Mrs. Hartman's house, she welcomed them with a warm smile. "I heard what you did," she said softly. "I felt the curse lift. Thank you for freeing my daughter and the others." Emma handed her the journal. "This belongs to you. Lucy's story should be remembered." Mrs. Hartman took the journal, her eyes filling with tears. "I'll make sure her story is told, and I'll help you warn others so something like this never happens again." As they left Mrs. Hartman's house, the friends felt a sense of closure. The weight of the past had been lifted, and they could finally move forward. Months passed, and life in Millfield slowly returned to normal. The carnival was a distant memory, its dark history buried along with the curse. Emma, Jake, Emily, and Tom resumed their lives, but they remained closer than ever, bonded by the shared ordeal. Emma pursued her passion for writing, channeling her experiences into stories that subtly warned of the dangers of dabbling in the unknown. Jake focused on his studies, determined to make a positive impact on the world. Emily and Tom both found solace in helping others, volunteering in their community and sharing their story in ways that would help others avoid similar dangers. One evening, as they gathered for a quiet dinner at Emma's house, they reflected on how far they had come. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't broken the curse?" Emily asked, her voice contemplative. Jake nodded. "All the time. But I think that's what makes us appreciate life more. We faced something unimaginable and came out stronger." Tom raised his glass. "To us, and to the memory of those we helped set free." They clinked their glasses together, a silent toast to their resilience and friendship. As the years went by, the friends continued to share their story, each in their own way. The tale of the cursed carnival game became a local legend, a cautionary tale that parents told their children to keep them from straying too far into the unknown. Emma's writings gained recognition, her stories resonating with those who had faced their own fears and come out stronger. Jake's work in the community inspired others, while Emily and Tom's dedication to helping others created ripples of positive change throughout Millfield. The memory of the carnival and its curse never faded completely, but it no longer haunted them. Instead, it served as a reminder of their strength and the power of unity. The friends had faced the darkest of challenges and emerged victorious, their bond unbreakable. And as they looked towards the future, they knew that no matter what came their way, they would face it together, their shared experience a beacon of hope and resilience in an ever-changing world.